All right, we're going to take a little journey, not into some far-off sci-fi fantasy, but to a future that's really just around the corner. We're going to see what a day in the life of the year 2050 could actually feel like, pieced together from what some of the world's top experts are projecting.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about it? What are you going to see when you first wake up? How are you going to get around? What's for lunch? It might seem far away, but believe it or not, the choices we're making today are shaping those very answers. So let's dive in and imagine just one possible version of that future.
Okay, so our journey starts where most of our days do, at home. But this isn't just any old house. It's a home that's been completely reimagined for a whole new world.
To make this all feel a bit more real, let's meet George. Now, his building isn't brand new or anything. In fact, it's a relic from our time. But it's gone through this incredible transformation, turning it from just a place that uses energy into an active part of the environmental solution.
And here's where things get really clever. Waste pretty much becomes wealth. So George's retrofit, which is based on some cool ideas from Imperial College London, uses insulation made from, get this, poultry feathers. And his windows? They're literally built from captured CO2. A tiny little robot actually crawled through his walls to install it all. In this world, buildings are valued by their carbon capture score, basically how much carbon they can actively store. Every home is a carbon sink.
Okay, so let's zoom out from George's apartment for a second and take a look at the city itself. Because his sustainable home is only really possible because it's part of a much, much larger and smarter system.
Now, I know this slide has a lot going on, but the main takeaway is actually pretty simple. This is the global roadmap from the International Energy Agency for how we get to net zero emissions, which just means we stop adding new greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. The super green, efficient city George lives in, it didn't just happen. It's the result of a decades-long coordinated plan to totally overhaul our energy.
So the crucial thing to get is that this whole transformation happened in stages. You can see it right here on the timeline. By 2030, all new buildings were built to be zero carbon ready. Then, just 5 years later, electricity generation itself hit net zero. And now, in our year 2050, renewables like solar and wind are powering almost 70% of everything. George's retrofitted home is just one small piece of this massive global puzzle.
So let's head out onto the streets. Where getting around is, well, it's completely different. With so much flexible work, rush hour is basically gone. The streets are actually designed for people first, for walking and cycling. For longer trips, you've got autonomous electric vehicles that just glide by when you need them. And all the supplies and packages, they're moved around by drones and underground robots, while EV charging stations just pop up from the ground when needed, keeping the city looking clean and uncluttered.
But you know, this new world isn't just about cool green tech. It's also been shaped by one of the biggest economic shifts in history. In fact, you could say that all the tech we just saw was fueled by this massive economic rebalancing. The global balance of power. It looks nothing like it did in our time.
To really get the scale of this change, we have to rewind a bit. Back in 2015, you had two big economic groups. The G7, that's the established players like the US, the UK, and Germany, and the E7, a group of major emerging economies like China, India, and Brazil. And as you can see from this PwC data, their economic weight was pretty much balanced back then.
Okay, now fast forward to 2050. The scales have tipped dramatically. The E7 economies are now projected to be nearly double the size of the G7. That's not a small tweak. That's a fundamental reordering of the entire world's economic landscape. This chart right here visualizes that shift perfectly. Just follow the rankings. You can see China is still at number 1, but look at India. It's jumped into the second spot, right ahead of the US. And here's the really big story. Find Indonesia. It has skyrocketed to 4th place, and Mexico is now the world's 7th largest economy. 6 of the top 7 economies in the world are what we used to call emerging markets.
All right, so after a morning in this incredible new city, it's gotta be time for lunch. And just like with housing and transportation, what we eat and where it all comes from has been totally transformed.
So George grabs lunch, and it's unbelievably fresh because it was grown just a few blocks away in an aquaponic farm that's built right into a skyscraper. There's zero plastic waste, the container is made from algae and it'll just biodegrade. Food supply chains are short, they're local, and waste has been pretty much designed out of the system.
So, George's local lunch is one thing, but feeding 8 or 9 billion people, that's a monumental challenge.
According to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, humanity is basically standing at a crossroads, with two profoundly different futures ahead of us.
And this slide, it lays that choice out so starkly. Don't worry about all the numbers, just look at the two main scenarios. On the left, you have the business-as-usual path. And even with more food being produced, undernourishment is still this persistent, tragic problem. But now, look to the right, at the towards sustainability path. Here, undernourishment just plummets. The key takeaway isn't just about growing more food, it's about a more equitable world. We solve world hunger through fairness, not just sheer volume.
So what does all this mean? This whole vision of 2050, from the insulation in our walls to the global economic order, well, it isn't inevitable. It's the end result of trillions and trillions of choices.
You know, this quote from PwC's chief economist really captures the mindset that it would take to get here. Building this kind of future requires us to look past all the daily noise, past the immediate crises, and really focus on the deep, fundamental drivers of progress, like demographics, technology, and just smart, long-term investment.
Ultimately, the future isn't some destination that we just show up at. It's a reality we are actively creating, day by day. This was just one possible picture of 2050, built from today's data and innovations. So the final question, the one that really matters, is left to us.